Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Tommy Earl Jenkins, and welcome back to Joy to the Word, the Death Stranding Edition, Episode 6. This is the sixth of a 10-part series where we are now over halfway through as we continue to delve into that incredible world of Death Stranding via these character interviews. Now, I've said it before, but this is really that opportunity for those of you who haven't played the game, those of you who have played the game, or thinking about it. It's a chance for you to hear some of the backstory and in-depth information on how some of these characters have come together and how some of these relationships have bonded and were forged, as well as the history and lore behind Death Stranding, and how some of these characters have pretty much just come to exist in this environment. Now, we're leading up to the highly anticipated director's cut, which is released on September 24th, 2021, so mark your calendars. Now, in this episode, I will be covering the interviews given by Mama and Lockne. Now, the fantastic Margaret Qualley takes on this dual role playing twin sisters with such heartfelt emotion. You really do feel for her. So the titles of the interviews in this episode are, from Mama, the Chiral Network 1, the Chiral Network 2, and Drones and the Singularity. From Lockne, it will be Lockne and Malingen, and What Became of Malingen and Lockne. Once again, as you can see, this is one of our shorter episodes based on the number of interviews given by these two characters. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started and see what insight we can get from Mama and Lockne. So let's go ahead and start with my usual in terms of a little bit of biographical stuff on the character. So from Mama, her real name is Malingen. She is a main character in Death Stranding. She is affiliated with Bridges and is the twin sister of Lockne. She is one of the greatest scientists in the UCA, inventing a plethora of gadgets and tools for porters to use, mainly our main guy, Sam. Additionally, she is one of the creators of the Chiral Network. Mama and Lockne were genius twin sisters born with dooms, which gave them the ability to communicate with each other across the world. Together, they each made half of the Chiral Network. Now, Mama made the hardware and Lockne made the software. Now, their equal genius and close bond was so great that many believed them to be the same person in two bodies. How interesting is that? However, Mama's ovaries were unable to produce eggs, and Lockne's uterus was incapable of carrying a child to term. Now, while both were initially accepting of these circumstances, Lockne eventually fell in love with a Bridges member and wanted to develop a relationship with him. However, unfortunately, he died in an accident, leaving Lockne depressed and suicidal. Now, apparently, Mama could feel this and wanted to help her and proposed to Lockne that they should have a baby. So, using the deceased sperm, Lockne's eggs, and Mama's uterus, the two sisters were able to create Lockne a child that would be carried to term by Mama. Now, the other thing is that Mama's known to be one of the brightest minds in the UCA, a genius. This makes her have no concern in basic normal life like children's and relationships. She really doesn't want any kids. She only gets pregnant to help her sister Lockne to conceive. Also, she's one of the most humorous characters in the game, making sarcastic comments and bad jokes. The condition of her BT baby also makes her melancholic, and the loneliness derived of the situation increases that aspect. She possesses dooms, like I said. She can perceive the BTs and see clearly to the other side. In fact, she was the one who saved Sam when he was stuck on the beach after he stops Amelie. So interesting to know if you haven't. A little bit of a spoiler there. So, but you know what's happening here. So listen, so that's a bit of the bio on Mama, which I find is very interesting. Now, as we move forward and we get into, I will hit a bio regarding Lockne as well. So those biographs will cross over. Those biographies will cross over, and you will hear some of the same stuff again, but slightly worded differently, and also a little bit more information. So there we have. That is Mama. Hitting the first interview, the Chiral Network 1. So, the Chiral Network 1, the interview given by Mama, this was 3 years ago before First Expedition's departure. And it took place in Central Knot City headquarters. And she states, so the core infrastructure is complete. The basic Cupid Ready Chiral Network setup is good to go. Now all we have to do is connect Central Knot City to Capital and prove that it actually works. Now sadly, I won't be here to see it. I've been assigned to the expedition team's second group, so I'll be heading west with the others. But the people in charge here are the best of the best. They'll have the network operational inside of 3 years, just as planned. I'm sure of it. And while they're seeing to that, we'll be visiting towns and whatnot across the country and putting the facilities in place for when things are finally up and running. Amelie and the others in the lead group will be forging the connections and laying the groundwork to make sure everything goes to plan. Afterwards, we'll just need to link it all up with operational Cupids, and that should be that. Hey, it's kind of like the Apollo missions back in the day. They used a 3-stage rocket to get to the moon, right? Well, we're using a 3-stage process to do something almost as revolutionary. So this takes place, the Chiral Network 1, 3 years before the first expedition's departure. So we're going back. Now, the Chiral Network 1, just so we're clear, Central Knot City was destroyed in a massive void out. Capital Knot City is the capital city of the UCA, which is located on the East Coast. And I think we've touched on that, where we had the president sort of working out of that, but letting people think that she was in another place while she was working from another location. So 3 years before the first expedition, which I believe is when Amelie was captured by the Homo demons, which is where, in the briefing trailer, if you remember that, where Amelie comes and she's with Di Hardman and they talk about what happened, how she was captured and everything. And I believe this was before that happened. I just find it's all very interesting, and knowing the history that they are the reasons, Mama and Lockne, obviously we're dealing with Mama, but that she is the reason for the Chiral Network, her and her sister, which we come to know plays an incredibly important part in the functionality of getting all the cities back online after that massive void out that caused the Death Stranding. So she's saying that the infrastructure is complete, and the network setup is good to go. So we're now at a point where they can continue to work on that, get things started, and in the meantime, she is being shipped out to join she's been assigned to the expedition teams, to the second group. So she'll be heading west. And obviously, that's where Amelie was captured. So she's also saying that, they'll have it operational inside of 3 years as planned. And they're going to be visiting these towns. And so it's like going across and trying to get, I suppose campaigning to get these towns and everyone hooked up was the plan. And eventually I think it's Sam who has to kind of take on that responsibility. And the intent was that Amelie and the others were going to be forging those connections and laying the groundwork to make sure that everything went according to plan. It's interesting, and as we move forward, we'll discover how all of that comes to be. Let's go ahead and move on. Any interesting questions or thoughts that you might have, by all means, please pop them down. You've done this before now, so you know how this works. Let's go on to the Chiral Network 2, which is the next interview. The Chiral Network 2, the interview given by Mama. This was also 3 years ago, before First Expedition's departure, also at Central Knot City headquarters, HQ. And she states, in a way, the Chiral Network makes use of the beach to allow us to travel through time. See, sending large amounts of data takes large amounts of time, as you'd expect. But the thing about beaches is, well, time doesn't pass the same way in them as it does out here. Might not even pass at all. Think about how the light from the stars in the sky we see was produced thousands and thousands of years ago. Routing data through the beach is like jumping to a point earlier in that journey, thereby cutting it shorter. Much shorter. Now just imagine massive amounts of data transferred almost instantaneously. That's what we're trying to achieve with the Chiral Network, in a nutshell. In theory, the network allows us to reconstruct old data that would otherwise be lost, and to do so with fragmented resources. Using what's known as Evo-Devo analysis, we could take the finger bone of a dinosaur, say, and extrapolate from that not only the dinosaur's form, but its composition. Internal, external, even its thought processes to a degree. Anything's possible with chiral computing. In other words, we won't just be able to reunite a nation. We'll be able to reclaim everything we lost in the Death Stranding. More, even. Theoretically, we could go back as far as the birth of the planet and beyond. And thanks to the beach, we'll be able to compile all that data in one place and reduce the processing time for even the most complex analysis to nearly zero. So, with this chiral network, using the Evo-Devo analysis, they can reconstruct old data that would otherwise be lost. So, not just able to reunite a nation, but reclaim everything they lost in the Death Stranding. So, does that mean people and lives? Is it like a reset button that we can just start again? Because if that is indeed the case, imagine being able to just go, okay, it's like the situation in which the world is in now. Is it a chance that we could just, stop, pause, reset? To a degree, I kind of think that's what the world is doing, where, Mother Nature's kind of had enough in some respects and said, you know what? I think you all just need to think about what you've done, go to your room, and come out after you've thought about it, and then let's, let's reset, and I really need you to think about it. So in a way, also this is sort of referring to, I think, sending large amounts of data takes large amounts of time, as you'd expect. That to me, it just says it's dealing with uploading. Whenever we need to upload videos, or we need to upload any information, whether we transfer it or Dropbox it or send it via an email, all of that, the larger the file, the longer it takes. And to some degree, sometimes it can literally bring your system to a halt, which is why a lot of people don't like, please don't send me an email with a huge file or huge attachments. One, it's going to take forever to download, and two, it's going to slow my whole system down and probably stop me for a bit. So I don't need that. Which is why we now have things like Dropbox and WeTransfer. So you can take some of those larger files and put them through those platforms and just download the links or whatever. And it seems you can condense the files and all that sort of stuff. And so I think that's pretty much what we're going through, and that's kind of what the Chiral Network, to a degree, is. And it is. It's getting things back online. It's how we work. It's how we live. It's how we function. It's a very hard thing to think about in terms of functioning in this day and age without use of the internet. So if what it's like when your email goes down. I've been having issues with mine a while back, and it has been a nightmare because it's working perfectly fine on my phone, but on my laptop something's screwed up. So I've got to you start to mess with all that, and once those things you try to fix it, and I'm not the most technological person. I'm not that technological savvy, so I can think that I'm fixing something, and in actual fact, I'm making it worse. And at some point, you just have to hand it over to someone who knows what they're doing, a technician. Take it to the Geek Squad. But she's also saying, routing data through the beach is like jumping to a point earlier in the journey, thereby cutting time shorter. So imagine these in massive amounts of data that's transferred to be able to be transferred instantaneously. And that's what we're trying to achieve with the Chiral Network in a nutshell. And, and I think that's kind of what they do. Using the Cupids to bring everything online and to get all that information processed. But also saying that they would be able, so it comes into, I'm going on a little bit because I have the time, but it's like 3D printing, which is fascinating to me and also scary because, people can print weapons, they print guns, they print other wonderful things, and it's interesting, some of the masks that I have, 3D printed. I believe. And, that's incredible to me. All the detail and, yeah, I think that's incredible. But that is, in a nutshell, minor in comparison to some of the other stuff that's being printed out there. And yet it can also be very, very scary. But she's saying that, they could take the finger bone of a dinosaur and extrapolate from that, not only the dinosaur's form, but its composition, internal and external, even its thought processes to a degree. So anything is, according to her, anything is possible with chiral printing. So you could be duplicated, it would seem, in your human form. I don't know if that's true in this sense, but it kind of makes me feel like what you're saying is because if you can, extrapolate even its thought processes, does that mean that you can create its working brain? Is it something like that? But not only that, but you'll be able to reclaim everything that was lost in the Death Stranding. Well, that's incredible, and that would be life changing for everyone to go back. But once again, that comes back to hitting that reset button. Um, so interesting, very interesting stuff. And she's also, the final thing I want to touch on is that saying going back as far as the birth of the planet and beyond. And thanks to the beach, we'll be able to compile all that data in one place and reduce the processing time for even the most complex analysis to nearly zero. That's, to me, I can't even imagine being able to do that. But this is Death Stranding, so anything is possible. So the Chiral Network too. Let's go ahead and move on to the next interview, which is drones and the singularity. It's an interview from Mama. Took place several months ago, and it took place at Central Knot City HQ. And she states, "Yep, the bot is good to go. We're putting it through some field tests within the network service area. Should have the results before long. Delivery efficiency within a given region is expected to improve following a successful Cupid connection as well. No, that won't be a problem. The bot's just a cargo carrier. Human input is required to accept orders and set coordinates. Drone syndrome shouldn't be a factor. And the singularity? Not a chance." Well, think about it. AI doesn't die. It might get upgraded or replaced, but that's not at all comparable to death. So it has no reason to fear it, you see. The concept is completely foreign, incomprehensible. Death comes to all living things. But only humans have the capacity to understand the implications, to imagine what it means to no longer exist. That's one limitation AI won't ever overcome. And that's the reason it won't ever surpass human intelligence. So, drones and the singularity. Now, the singularity, I believe, in the sense, is where I suppose reality is influenced by technology, where it could be so advanced and unpredictable that humanity can't keep up with the constant progression of it. And so with that is something that we're constantly surrounded with. We're constantly surrounded with the possibilities of things being upgraded, our phones, our laptops, our other devices. And if you stop and think about over the last 10 years how things have advanced, and that's 10 years is not a long time, but even if you went back further, you only need to just look at history to see how far we've come. And you think about maybe even the last 5 years, how things have advanced. Imagine where we will be in the next 5 years or the next 10. Because technology is moving so swiftly that even humanity, I feel, even though humans are creating, I think, the technology and the advancement of it, but we can't keep up. It's moving so fast that we just, it's almost impossible. We're managing, but it seems sometimes impossible. But I found it interesting that it is the one thing, she says, that the one limitation AI won't ever overcome. And it's the one thing that it can't relate to. She says, death comes to all living things, but only humans have the capacity to understand the implications. AI won't surpass human intelligence. Death is an interesting thing because I get it. It does come, it's inevitable for us all. As a child, when I grasped that concept of what life really is all about, there was a moment of absolute fear. I remember as a child, my mother explaining it to me, what death was all about. And when it hit me in a way that I realized that at some point I will no longer be on this earth in my human form, in this body, me, TJ, Tommy Earl Jenkins, will no longer exist here physically. And it was, I remember crying because it was something that you will inevitably learn. But I thought it was wonderful to know it early on in my life, that that's just the reality. That is the process of living. We're born and we die. Unlike artificial intelligence, just will continue to exist, even with the working knowledges of human characteristics, but still not human. So AI, they don't have the doesn't have the capacity to understand its implications, whereas we as humans, we certainly understand it. We know what it's like, or what we feel when we lose someone to death, in whatever capacity. And it is the reason it won't ever surpass human intelligence, because it has no idea. It doesn't compute, to be precise. But death does come to all living things, animals included, and humans have the capacity to understand the implications, but to imagine what it means to no longer exist. We get that. We understand it. So no matter how advanced things become, and in terms of AI and all this technology, that we get robots who can do all these amazing things, practically everything physically a human can do. I saw some on the news the other day, and they were jumping around and turning and spinning, and and almost the movement has become less robotic, and more fluid. They're finding ways to make the robots more fluid. And I suppose you throw some skin over that, some latex, and you put some eyes and things like that, and you've got a reproduced human form look-alike, but no heart and no soul. And at the end of the day, that's one thing that I figure, where she touches the reason it won't ever surpass human intelligence, because it won't ever be able to understand that emotion, no matter how much technology, unless by some stroke of the imagination someone creates something like that. But I still think there's no way that you can recreate the human in so many forms, and the lookalikes, and the actions and all of that. But you'll never be able to replace the heart and the soul and the spirit of the human body. So yes, I don't foresee anything like that happening. So this all of this. And she's also saying that the drone syndrome shouldn't be a factor in the singularity. And I thought that, the singularity just really kind of hit me, because I do find the reality is that we are influenced by technology, where it is so advanced and unpredictable that, we can't keep up, no matter how hard we try. Yeah, very interesting. Shoot your thoughts, your questions, with regards to that. I'd love to hear it, and any stories you might have. I'll see you on the live chat. Let's go ahead and move on to Lockne. And this is a bit of a biography for her. Lockne is a gifted technician who serves as the overseer of Mountain Knot City. She is the twin sister of Mama and one of the creators of the Chiral Network. So Mama and Lockne were born conjoined, and subsequent surgery was performed to separate the two identical twins. Both were born with dooms that granted them the ability to feel each other's emotion and communicate with each other irrespective of their locations. Gifted with great intellect, they soon found themselves as accomplished technicians, each responsible for creating half of the Chiral Network. Mama created the hardware and Lockne wrote its software. Their equal genius and close bond was so great that many believed that they were the same person in two bodies, which we've touched on before. Though the sisters share a great many traits, their few differences tend to stand in complete opposition to one another. For one, Malingen has never wanted kids, while Lockne loved them, but was infertile. And at some point, Lockne was in a relationship with someone from Bridges 1, which we discussed earlier, and unfortunately it ended tragically in an accident. And his sudden departure left her greatly depressed. However, he did have sperm frozen, possibly in preparation of the unforeseen. Now, sensing her sister's distress, Malingen offered to be the surrogate mother of her child. Strangely, around the child's due date, Malingen suddenly cut off all communications with her and disappeared. Lockne was furious, as she thought that Malingen had ran off with her child. Dun dun dun. The drama ensues. So very interesting stuff about her. Very, very similar. I didn't realize they were conjoined twins and had to be separated. Did I miss that? I just knew that they were twins. I can't remember. Anyway, another eye opener for myself. Also, that people, their genius, that they were such a close bond that people believed that they were the same person in two bodies. But very different ideas about what they wanted, completely opposite. Malingen never wanted the kids, but she did. But yet they found a way to cohesively come together and make something happen. The tragic accident that happened with the Bridges employee that Lockne was romantically involved with, unfortunately that accident caused a lot of grief. But it says that in this particular bio that he did have sperm frozen, possibly in preparation of the unforeseen, which I thought was interesting because, was it because of the Death Stranding that happened? Or was it just something, he thought, well, I may want to be a dad one day. I'm going to freeze this. And also the cutoff of communications with Malingen and Lockne, because she thought that Malingen had run off with her child. Now, you can find out a lot more about these two characters, I'm sure, on the internet, on Wiki, on some pages. There's, on Reddit, there's a lot of, conspiracy and thoughts and ideas that people have about it. So it'd be interesting to read what people think. But with that said, let's go on and hit the first interview from Lockne. This is Lockne and Malingen. It was interviews given from Lockne. It was 3 years ago and takes place at Bridges HQ. And she states, "You know what we used to dream about? Seeing what's beyond those clouds up there. And we spent our whole lives beneath a chiralium sky. It's all we've ever known. But we also know that the world used to be so much bigger. Our parents told us they were researchers who worked for NASA, though these days most people wouldn't know what that was. It went up in smoke around the same time America did, and all of our parents' work went with it. But we still have our dreams. The one thing our parents gave us that can never be taken away. Malingen and I were named after a pair of craters left by meteors, which struck the Earth 450 million years ago. Now, those craters are proof that this planet is part of something bigger, that we exist within a vast interconnected universe. Our names serve as a reminder of this fundamental truth, symbols of our parents' hope that our isolation is only temporary. That's why we join bridges too. To bring the people of this country together again, and to one day reunite this planet with the greater universe that surrounds it. So, Lockne and Malingen. Now, we know about them. We know the biographical stuff about them. Interesting that they were named after a pair of craters left by meteors. And it was interesting because I kind of knew that, but I also looked it up. So it's interesting to find out all these things within the game and in these interviews. And sometimes you hear something and you think, oh, let me just Google that and see what that is and see what I can find. So interesting. They were named after a pair of craters, Lockne and Malingen, which were real craters. The Lockne crater was located approximately 21 kilometers or 13 miles south of Östersund in northern Sweden. Computer simulations suggest that the asteroid that created the Lockne crater was 600 meters in diameter. It's 2,000 feet, apparently. Now, the Malingen crater, also located near Östersund, northern Sweden, probably also formed simultaneously with the Lockne crater. It is 1 kilometer in diameter. And if you get a chance to look any of that up, have a look at it. It's interesting to kind of see pictures and stuff of it. And that they were, their parents chose to name them after these two meteors, which struck Earth, 450 million years ago. But being scientists, the children of scientists, I'm not surprised in the slightest. But it's interesting. She says, our names serve as a reminder of this fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth, I presume she is referring to the craters. Now, they have grown up under a chiralium sky. It's all they've ever known. So they have no idea what it's like to be pre-death stranding or pre-chiralium is what I'm getting. Because she's saying, what we used to dream about, seeing what's beyond the clouds up there and the chiralium clouds. I think she's wondering what's beyond that. And it's all they've ever known. But like a lot of stuff happening in our lives, generations grow up in a certain time and it's all you've ever known. So trying to imagine what it's like prior that is very difficult because all you can do is read about it or hear about it or be told about it. But because of all of this, she's saying that's why they joined bridges, to bring people of this country together and to one day reunite the planet with the greater universe that surrounds it. And what a great universe it is. So I think their mission was a great one, and trying to bring the people together. And that seems to be the entire through line through Death Stranding is getting people to cohesively come together to connect, the strands, so to speak. Um, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Let me know your thoughts. Hit your questions up. Uh, and let me know. Here's an interesting one. If you've got kids, let me know, or even for yourselves, how you feel about where things are today versus where things used to be. In some ways, we've come great journey through history, surviving a lot of things. Some things I don't want to relive again. Some things I can look back over and kind of go, because of that, I am where I am today, be it good or bad. But how much do you share with your children? The history. There's an interesting one. Let's go ahead and move on to the final interview from Lockne, and the final interview in this episode. It is entitled "What Became of Malignant and Lockne." It was given by Lockne as the interviewee. It was 3 weeks before the inauguration and took place at Bridges HQ. And she said, "We'd forgotten all about our dream of going to space. It was a dream from an earlier, simpler time. From before we realized our baby was a BT, binding us to the other side, and before we had to sever the link between us. After that, Malignant couldn't even leave the lab, and Lockne swore to live a life of isolation in Mountain Knot City. There was no room in our heart for outer space. But now that we're one, it's all become so clear. In choosing isolation, choosing to forget about the outside world, we were just being human, just doing what everyone else was doing. We turned inwards, venturing deeper and deeper into ourselves, focusing on our inner worlds at the expense of the one we shared. Maybe this is what they mean when they say that the beach is a reflection of the individual soul. We became trapped in the multiverses contained within. But at last, we have a chance to escape. And now that America is whole, we can begin to expand our boundaries once more. The bonds we forged could carry us beyond these clouds. It's past time we saw the stars again." So what indeed became of Malignant and Lockne? So apparently, when Mama was preparing to give birth, a void out occurred. And this void out caused Mama to be buried in rubble, thus killing the child, which then manifests into a small or a tiny BT that remains connected via a ghostly umbilical cord to which it can still feed. Now, tragedy does ensue, but I will say play the game and find out what that is. But it was interesting because she says, before we realized our baby was a BT binding us to the other side, that they had forgotten all about their dream of going to space. It was a dream from an earlier, simpler time, before they realized their baby was a BT and it binding them to the other side, and before they had to sever the link between us. So after that, I think Malignant was sort of like, she couldn't leave the lab. Lockne swore to live a life of isolation in Mountain Knot City. There was no room in our heart for outer space. It was like they'd kind of given up in some form. But now that we're one, and I think she's referring to the afterlife, it's all become so clear. In choosing isolation, choosing to forget about the outside world, we're just being human, just doing what everyone else was doing. So they turned inwards, venturing deeper and deeper into themselves, focusing on their inner worlds at the expense of the one that they shared. And I presume that they're referring to the baby. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that is it. Let me know if you think the same. And she's saying it's past time we saw the stars again. And I think it is them thinking about space. That was always their thing, in a way. That was their passion. And I think she's saying that the bonds that they forge could carry us beyond the clouds, and that is where they want to go. They never knew anything other than the Chiral sky, the Chiralium sky. And maybe it's at this point that she feels that the time has come for us to now, let's just venture out and explore this world. Now, is this coming from an afterthought within the afterlife? Is it, I'm a little confused by this journey, and it's not because it's also confusion because this is a complex story. It always has been, and it still remains so. So I've been enjoying dissecting as much as I can, trying to learn. And also by reading these interviews has helped me piece a lot together, but also has opened up the door to a lot of other questions as well. But what indeed became of Mama and Lockne? If you know, let me know. And without me giving anything, I know what does happen to a degree, but it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on why you think that did. Did you agree? Or were you confused by it? Upset by it? Let me know. Let me know. So, listen, that was Mama and Lockne, based on the interviews that were given. So let me just say this as we bring this all to a close. Thank you again for your support. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for giving me all your insights, your questions, your thoughts, contributing to Joy to the Word, the Death Stranding edition. It's been great. It's not over yet. Like I said, this was episode 6, so we are now over halfway through with 4 episodes left to go. So what I am posing, because here's an interesting thing I need to know, and I will probably make an announcement again, but I'll let you know because you'll be watching this. But with those 4 next episodes to come, I'm contemplating and most likely will do those as live episodes. Haha. They will not be recorded, and I will be joining a live chat, but they will be done live. And part of that has a lot to do with my scheduling coming up. I've got a lot of projects that are sort of starting to pile up that I need to focus on. And so having to do all the technicalities of everything takes up a lot of time, and I need to kind of start to move my focus. I'm not taking focus away from this, but I want to do it because I want. Also, it will be interesting for those next episodes with some of the things that we're going to be getting into, like Higgs's journal and the reports from Lucy and all of that. Will be interesting to have that instant contact in your questions right away. We could be at those sessions all day, but we are going to limit it some time to them. So listen, let me know your thoughts on that. I am planning to do those live, and I hope you will join me for those. And if you can't join, they will obviously be available on my YouTube channel. So that was episode 6, Mama and Lockne. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed spending the time with you as always. So I will take this time to say once again, thank you so much. Please stay safe out there. Please stay focused and stay happy. Keep the love in your heart and share some of that. Let's try and adapt that positive mental attitude. It's a lot easier to be positive to me than it is to be negative. So let's just try and share some love, you know? Get rid of the hate and all of that. So, with that said, my friends, thank you again a million times over. I look forward to seeing you again for episode 7. And yes, with all of that, remember Death Stranding is being released in the director's cut September 24th. So make sure you're out there and ready and waiting and willing and going to play it and experience that all over again. One thing left for me to say: keep on, keeping on.